It's a private sale. It's my friend. Oh, well, you give him whatever you feel like giving him. Eventually, you could just give him nothing and be like, you know how it is, bro. But pay it off fast. That's still good ethics. It doesn't matter if you financed it in-house financing from the previous seller, be it a friend, family member, or a small buy here, pay here, versus getting a loan from a dealership and overpaying on the payment. If y'all agreed on a specific amount and you're giving them more than the agreed upon amount, if in the event that you have to pay less because something came up, the buyer or the seller will understand because you gave that person more than what you really needed to in order to stay good with the situation. And if you were given exactly what you guys agreed on, the $1,000 a month, and then something happened and you talk to the seller and they understand, you're still good just as easy. You'd never do that. Oh, so you would never overpay on a situation just to stay good with the seller? Okay. I would overpay. My dealership truck died. Yeah, I remember you said that you had one truck that topped out, and then you went and got this other truck, and now you're paying on this one. And I was telling you to fix the old one, but you was telling me that it was so bad that it wasn't worth fixing. And that's when I told you about trading it in and getting you a second backup vehicle so that you have two vehicles where you could spend more time on the road making money. You could even have a second person working for you using a second vehicle. If you're not going to have the second vehicle sitting there doing nothing, you could utilize that extra time where even if you were going to be the one fixing the vehicle, if somebody else is out there making the money for you, money is still moving on days that you're not moving. When I gave you that whole spiel about how to diversify and expand your position in your business so that you don't have to worry about so that you would never have to worry about not having enough income. But it's not about burning your friend. It's about overpaying on a debt, which is good payment habits, so that if in the event that you don't have enough, then you're not in a position where you're underpaying on a guaranteed agreement. It doesn't matter if it's a friend. It doesn't matter if it's a business. You know, if you don't got it, you don't got it. And in those scenarios, if you were only paying the minimum, you got to go to the seller, you got to go to the creditor and say, hey, I don't got it. Work out a payment option. I'll make it up later, stuff to that effect, but you just don't got it. But if you're always overpaying on something because you can, then when you don't have enough, you've already put in too much. So when you contact them and be like, hey, all I can do is this much, they don't care because you've already overpaid by a long shot. So the positive ethic of overpaying on a big bill instead of underpaying on a big bill keeps you in positive standing with the seller or the creditor, so that if you have to underpay for any reason, they will respect that effort because you've overdone yourself for an extended period of time. The difference between buying a vehicle in 5 years and buying a vehicle in 18 months is the amount of money you pay on the note. Doesn't matter if it's a $20,000 vehicle and you're making $21,000 payments, you're going to pay it off in 2 years, or if it's a $20,000 vehicle and you're making $250 payments and you're trying to pay that off in 5 to 7 years. The difference is that the more you put down, even if it's a 7-year contract, if you're putting down more, you can still get it paid off in 2 years. And if in the event that you got to start paying less, the contract is still 7 years. The notes are going to be spread out across whatever's left, which means you don't have to pay as much. And you'll end up with a minimum payment amount of like $50 because you don't owe that much. If they expect you to pay it off by a specific date, that's what it is. Yeah, I finished my entire house, rent a center on the basis of overpaying per month. Exactly. And that's one of the best ways to do it. When you can't afford to pay for it all at once, you can rent it all and then just overpay on the payments and get it quickly, which gives you good buyer's credit with them. So if you want to go back to rent a center and get something else, you have a good payment history with them. They're more likely to credit you more furniture under your account because you did a better job of paying them off. Got to have to pay them as much that I paid off in 3 months. That's a good job. Now, For decades, the final playbook was supposed to be simple. Rent is a straightforward transaction. So you pay for a place to live month in and month out. It doesn't swing wildly like the stock market or hit you with a surprise five-figure bill for a new roof. In a world of financial uncertainty, your rent check feels like one of the few things that you can count on. It's the feeling of control that makes renting safe, or so you would think, especially as a retirement gets closer and closer to your doorstep. And many people in their 50s look at their homeowner friends and see the stress, specifically because their homeowner friends put everything at 99% of their income. So while they lucked up and got the house at 35 to 40% of their income, then they added on to their debt with new cars, subscriptions, memberships, gifts, entertainment, vacations, children, child support, divorce, alimony, lawyers, all of the stuff that they added on to it. And now they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, trying to make ends meet. And they don't always have enough to cover. Then when insurances hit, because you have to have property insurance on a mortgage property, even if some cities, some states don't require you to have property insurance on a house that doesn't have a mortgage. While it has a mortgage, it has to have insurance on it. So you're looking at a whole nother level of stress when it comes down to if you don't have certain things paid by a certain time, or if you don't have all of the money in escrow by a certain time, you risk losing this and losing that and getting stuff taken from you. And people who rent don't have to deal with all that. When you have an unexpected repair, the roof breaks, a pipe busts, you've got to take care of that. And if it's $20,000 to repair, you got to take care of that. When you see a pipe bust in the parking lot of an apartment complex, you're like, damn, I'm glad my house isn't in front of that damage. And you just walk off because you're not paying for the repairs. So they see weekends lost in yard work, savings drained by broken furnaces and constant anxiety over interest rates and property taxes. Renting, by comparison, seems simple and elegant. You have one number to worry about. You know what your housing will cost next month. And this isn't just a feeling, it's a powerful psychological anchor that creates a story that you've opted out of the homeowner rat race for a more manageable financial life. But here's the uncomfortable truth: this sense of security is a dangerous illusion. It's a financial lullaby that puts millions of future retirees to sleep just as the ground is shifting beneath them. Because you're not alone when you think about where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. And when you see the information that I'm telling you and this resonates with you, you clearly understand that while you might have not known this before and you made that honest mistake, now there's something that you can do about it. We're in the middle of a massive demographic shift that analysts call the renter mint trend. The number of renters in the United States aged 65 and older has exploded. Today, seniors make up between 12 to 14% of all renter households in the country. The number of renters aged 55 to 64 has also swelled. Meanwhile, the number of younger renters has actually gone down. And this isn't a small statistical blip. It's a major shift in the housing market. An entire generation is moving into lifelong renting, driven by downsizing, being priced out of home ownership, or moving to be closer to family and healthcare. They're seeking a maintenance-free lifestyle, which is one of the best parts of renting, and easy access to the amenities on the property. Because why pay for an LA Fitness when you have a gym in your apartment complex? This isn't a niche trend. It's a new reality for a huge and growing part of the population. And this is precisely why the old rules no longer apply. The very thing that makes you feel safe, the fact that you're one of millions doing the same thing, is what's creating the trap. When you were one of the few who chose to rent long term, you were just a consumer. Now you're part of a massive, predictable group of individuals that are creating a massive demand. And in economics, when there's a massive and predictable demand, prices don't stay stable, they rise. Your sense of security is based on a game that no longer is being played. The board has changed completely. And if you don't learn new rules, your position is going to be lost. The feeling of safety you get from your monthly rent is based on the past, not the future. You cross into your 50s and head toward a fixed income. Four hidden dangers began to pop up, each one making the other worse and turning your predictable expense into a source of relentless financial pressure. And this is the most immediate and corrosive danger. You may think of your rent as stable, but it's not fixed. Unlike a 30-year mortgage that locks in your payment for 3 decades, your rent resets every single year. In some situations, it might be every other year because your landlord might raise the rent on you only when they're renewing a lease with you. If they don't raise the rent, or if they don't offer a rent renewal, you're going to stay with the rent that you had last time. But when you're in a month-to-month scenario, you always have the problem that your landlord can collect the rent on the first and give you a 30-day notice to vacate on the third, expecting you to be out by the third of the following month, where you don't have enough money to move because you gave all your money to your landlord, and now you have to spend money on application fees and house or apartment hunting while trying to work and maintain your standard of living. And you will find yourself in a heightened desperation because the short notice to get gone is not accompanied by the peace of mind of, as long as you pay your mortgage on time, you always have your house. You also have the opportunity, which I don't know if we're going to get to it, if the landlord changes out, the contract you had with the previous property owner is not the contract that you have with the new property owner. And the only thing that secures your position with the new property owner is the quantity of time that you advance paid for the space. So if you have a 1-year contract and the property is sold during that contract, you still have a contract to maintain the property. And then after that contract is up, the new landlord can either massively jack up the rent or just do a notice to vacate and have no interest of renewing a contract with you, which takes the guarantee of your housing completely out of your hands. So while everything was predictable in the past, the future is not set in stone. And the only time that you can guarantee that next month is guaranteed is if you have paid next month last month and they have not refunded you the money. As long as they keep the money, you're guaranteed to stay next month because you paid next month last month. If you're in the middle of January and you already paid for February, you are good for February. But if you in February get a notice to vacate, even if you paid for March, they're going to give you a notice of vacate and they're no longer going to accept your money, which means you got 60 days left to get out. It's a better blanket, but the home you've been in for 10, 15, 20 years is no longer yours. Okay? This is not based on your loyalty. The rent raises based on market forces. It's not going to stay low based on your loyalty or your financial situation. Some landlords guarantee fixed rates, but in order for them to maintain fixed rates, the quality of the maintenance goes down. We identify them as slumlords, but outside of Section 8 properties and HUD properties that have a mandatory maintenance requirement, any rent at your leisure scenario, if they don't raise the rent and you don't complain about the maintenance, they'll keep taking your money. Some tenants find themselves against contracts and laws and local laws in the state fixing their own unit so that they don't notify their landlord that maintenance is required, so that the landlord doesn't jack up the rent, because there are some times where you don't get a rent increase until the landlord starts fixing a bunch of stuff in your unit. The same way you don't get an insurance increase on your vehicle till you start taking out claims on your insurance. Now, while the wild rent spikes of the early 2020s have cooled down, recent annual growth moderating to 2 to 3% has financial planners operating on a crucial rule of thumb for long-term planning. You must assume an average annual rent increase of 3 to 5% over time. So if you're paying $1,000 a month right now, you're expecting a 5% increase. Even if it doesn't happen, you're expecting it, and you're putting money aside for it. So even if it doesn't happen, if you were paying $1,000 a month for your rent in 25, you're probably going to start putting $1,050 aside in 26, or 1,100 aside in 26, just to be sure. The rent doesn't go up, that's fine. But if it goes up in 27, you already have an extra $1,200 there, where you can start paying that $1,100 or $1,200 a month rent, where the rent has gone up. And that'll hold you down between the money you set aside for the rent versus the actual money that you don't pay for the rent. That'll hold you down for at least a year, but eventually that's going to catch up with you. So we all just live through a period where the national average of rent climbed over 30% in just 5 years. 30% is a lot of money, because if you were paying 1,000 and it went up 30%, you're now spending 1,300. And if you were paying 2,000, now you're paying 2,600. So y'all understand how this is heavy. And this only all happened in just 5 years, from 2020 to 2024. This isn't a glitch. It's the system working as it was designed. So let's make this a little bit real for you guys. A 3 or 4% increase might not sound like much in a single year, but you're not planning for 1 year in your retirement. You're planning for 20, 30 more years. And this is compounded while working against you. So let's take rent of $2,000 a month today. You're feeling manageable about that. You've been knocking that back for a minute. But let's apply a conservative 3.5% average annual increase, which is a number well within historical norms. In 5 years, that $2,000 rent becomes about $2,375 a month. And that is an extra $4,500 per year that you need to find. And in 10 years, it's about $2,820 a month. And now you're paying nearly $10,000 more per year than you are today for the exact same apartment, not necessarily in better condition. In 20 years, you might be in your late 70s or early 80s, and that same $2,000 rent has ballooned to nearly $4,000 a month, where you're now paying double the additional $24,000 a year that you used to pay. And here's the critical part of the trap, because while your single biggest expense is on the relentless upward escalator, what's your income doing? You're retired. It's likely fixed or growing very slowly. Social Security has cost of living adjustments, but they often fail to keep pace with real world inflation, especially for housing. Your pension is likely fixed. Withdrawals from your 401k are finite, and this creates a brutal financial squeeze. Every year, the gap between your income and your largest expense widens. It's a slow motion crisis that forces you to make impossible choices. The money that was supposed to be for travel, healthcare, or hobbies gets relocated to just keeping a roof over your head. And this is how renting silently drains a retirement plan. about half of all renters in America, which is 22 million households, already spend 30% or more of their income on rent. And that is the people who had it under control. The rest of y'all that know that 80% of your income goes towards your rent, you have to have 2 or 3 roommates to help you pay for the rent in order for y'all all to have a roof over your heads together. You have to understand this is what is considered a rent burdened lifestyle. For seniors on a fixed income, this burden gets heavier every year. For a homeowner, a mortgage payment is a hybrid. Part of it is interest, but a big chunk of it is the principal, a payment back to themselves. It's a force of savings accounts utilizing the equity in the property. And every month they convert part of their income into a tangible asset, which is home equity, because over 30 years, this turns their largest liability into their single greatest asset. Because if they needed some money to fix the roof, they can remortgage the house and get that money and put it on fixing the roof. Steven said, this makes me so glad that I had a great landlord for the last few years. But see, one of the things that sucks about having a great landlord is that when the landlord retires, they sell the property to somebody else that isn't always a great landlord. The person getting rid of the property does not assess the ego of the person that's claiming the property. So even though you might have a landlord doing right by you right now, you can't guarantee that's going to be the same landlord you're going to have in 5 years. As long as you keep that landlord, things are good. But when things change, Steven says he kept it cheap, 625, fixed things with no increase, and let me work for him on other properties to knock down the rent. That's a good deal with one another. Moving next month, unfortunately. Okay, well, when you move next month, next month's February, I'm going to revisit this conversation with you 30 days into your new apartment. And we're going to discuss how things are so much different with the new property that you're going to be staying on. And the fact is that no matter how good one person might be to you as a rental property, you cannot bank on that standard of living or that lifestyle being the thing for you for the next 40 years. It's like that right now, and it's been good in the past. And under the assumption that nothing changes, it is a good thing to consider or predict going forward. But the problem is, the situation is not always going to be the same. Staying with my dad for a few months. You say that like that's a good thing. If he's in charge, authority shifts. You go from being independent to being a dependent. If he's not in charge, if he is needing your assistance at the household, you go from being an independent to being a caretaker. You say a few months, but a few months is actually going to be a few years. You don't want to be there for a few years, but if you're not putting the extra money that you don't need to put towards your father's standard of living into high interest accounts so that you can build up a revolving payable income from dividends, not just a high interest savings account where you've got emergency fund money. Like, the money needs to be giving you back more money so that you don't have to put so much effort into earning so much money. That way, when you segue back out of your father's place, that you will have your own income for whatever you work from and this investment income on top of that, which will give you twice as much money, if not more than that, which allows you to still live modestly, but you will be living modestly with more than half of your income not requiring your presence. Not saying anything about dads being bad, because I prefer and I encourage people to spend more time with their dads than what they do with anyone else, because men got it hard these days. But the stress of the matter is that when you go from being independent to going back home, in some families, the authority of the household is going to still be the same. So if you moved out because of that power struggle, when you move back in after the first 3 weeks, you're going to start re-experiencing that same power struggle. You might only be able to stand a few months because that power struggle might encourage you to get back out even faster. But then you'll be relocating unprepared. And when you do get to that self-sustained scenario, you're going to be trying to get blood out of a turnip because you moved out unprepared just to get back away from that clash of authority. So as a renter, your payment is a pure expense. There's no equity behind that. 100% of the money goes to your landlord, building their equity and their net worth. You are, in effect, paying someone else's mortgage. That's usually what we say in investments, is to leverage your debt onto your tenants. Buy a new property, raise the rent. You know what I mean? Fix a property, raise the rent. Offset your expenses off to your tenants, the same way a pastor offsets the cost of the church onto the congregation. While this is a simple transaction in your 30s and sometimes in everyone's 40s, it becomes a huge financial gap after the age of 50. You say, I'll see how it goes. He lives close to the city with the new college I'm transferring to. Right. So because it's cheaper to stay with your dad than it is to stay on campus, staying next to your dad, especially if you haven't been around your dad for a while, y'all will bond and y'all are gonna hang out and have a decent time. And he might not ever talk about throwing you out throughout your college years. But right after you graduate, if you didn't put your money where it needed to be, you're going to still be unprepared when you move on. Likewise, if there is a clash, because you can go live on campus, he might not make the offer. You might just assume this is going to be better because I don't like being told what to do. And then you'll scurry on off and find you a location on campus. All it takes is for a couple college parties and staggering into the house in the middle of the night, making too much noise, and y'all are going to have some misunderstandings. That's it. Because every parent wants your kid to be successful. And when you stagger in after a college party, smelling like the college party, they're not going to look at that and think success. They're going to start lecturing you. You're not going to want to hear it. That conversation is going to spiral out of control because they only want the best for you. You don't want to hear it. That's the dynamic between different generations. It always happens. When you get older, if you have kids, you're going to be the same way. They're not going to want to hear it. It's the same. You're just on the other side of the same fence. You know, we don't have the right words to tell the next generation how to do better than what we did. But when we were the next generation being told by the last generation how to do better than what they did, we ain't want to listen to them neither. So if we come from an understanding that talking to, it's meant to do good, even though it's annoying as hell, you might just tolerate a lot of those sit downs because it comes from a good place, no matter how it's worded. Now, the most critical function of home equity in later life is as an emergency fund. A major health crisis or a sudden financial shock can strike at any time. And for homeowners, their equity is a powerful buffer because you never need money inside of the first 48 hours. This isn't like a hostage situation. At the end of the day, if somebody says that somebody's got a health issue in the family and you need the money to go and take care of that health issue, you can always mortgage your property and get the money to take care of the health issue. So at any point in time, a homeowner can tap into that financial buffer with a home equity line of credit, which is called a HELOC, a reverse mortgage, or by selling the house altogether to get a larger sum of cash if that's what they need. It's a financial safety net built over decades. The lifelong renters have no such backup plan. There's no backstop there. Their only buffer is their cash savings and their investment opportunities. So if a $100,000 unexpected expense comes up, the renter must pull that entire amount either from the portfolio that was supposed to fund their retirement or another location wherever that money is coming from, whether they have to sell their car or uh, pawn off a bunch of their stuff, take out a big loan, a cash loan, which has higher interest rates than a mortgage, whatever they got to do. It's a devastating blow that can permanently cripple their financial plans. You're living without a safety net there. And the tightrope gets higher and shakier with age. You can bounce back from a financial loss at a young age. You might be able to walk off of one job and walk on to another job when you're 15, 17, 18 years old, 22, 23 years old. I don't need this, the Austin 316 middle fingers, and walk off and go do your own thing. But at 50 years old, they're hiring a younger group of folks. They're hiring a more capable group of folks. At 45, 50, 60 years old, you start being overqualified for underpaying jobs. It starts getting harder to transition. Then, depending on what job you're getting yourself into, you recognize we're now dealing with scenarios where the technology is taking over the labor force. So certain jobs aren't even going to be available to you as easily as they used to be 30 years ago. I remember I was walking into a restaurant one day because I used to be a cook, and I placed an order and I got the job because I placed the order. And it happened to me more than once, because one time I placed the order and I made a specific order that would only be able to be made by an experienced person on the job. Boss man knew I knew what I was talking about. Told me, hey, if you're looking for a job, I need workers. And I honestly needed a job at the time. There was another situation where I was at a restaurant and I called the order out better than some of the servers that were in the restaurant. They knew I had experience in the company. They heard how I was talking about what I wanted to eat. And they're like, hey, if you're willing to work, I'm willing to pay you. I used to get jobs with no problem. You're not going to be able to do that these days. Matter of fact, back in the day, if you kept your uniform from your last job and that job is a chain, you could always bring a dinosaur expired uniform to that job, which shows that you know what you're doing from the dark ages. And they don't even interview you. They just give you a newer one, let you keep the old one, and put you straight to work. It was on merit back then. These days, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Depending on the career choice, not only do you have different people in the United States that want that job, you got people coming over here getting green cards coming to get that job. Now with digital nomad opportunities, they don't have to hire in the vicinity of certain companies. They can hire somebody overseas to work that same job. You've got competition. You're not just competing against the people in your city and your state. You're now competing against 4 billion people around the world that have access to your job. It's not as easy as it used to be. At my age, that uniform doesn't fit. It don't matter. You can tie it around your waist like an apron. The fact that you walked in with it, they know that you used to do this and that uniform used to fit. They'll give you an extra large. Got Dunlap Diesel. Good job. Now, smart investors understand that assets pay you while liabilities will cost you. And for a homeowner, their house starts out as a huge liability, but slowly turns into a massive asset. For a renter, housing is permanently a liability because you're legally not able to sublet the apartment. Most apartment complexes around the United States, even though it voids your contract, allows you to move a boyfriend or a girlfriend into your apartment without adding them onto the lease and subsidize your apartment's income. Long as you pay the rent and nobody's fighting in the unit, I don't give a damn. That's typically the mentality of the renters and the landlords in the United States. But the day that the person not on the lease starts becoming a problem for the complex, the landlord brings up the fact that that guy's not on the lease or that chick's not on the lease, and all of y'all got to get out now. So you can't, so you take a risk jeopardizing the permanency of your residency of that unit by subletting it to another person or adding another tenant to the property. He says assets pay me money, which frees up my time to start chasing another cash stream. But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to build up your assets first so that you can utilize those assets to pay for your obligations so that you have more time to focus on other ways to make more money. That's the reason why you're able to go to all of those estate sales and look into picking up real estate properties off of asset.com, because if your primary obligations are guaranteedly covered by a stream of income where you don't need for anything, you're looking for something to do and turning a profit from it. In these situations, as a renter, though, an individual find themselves in a financial treadmill because they're running faster each year with the rising rents just to stay in the same place. Meanwhile, the homeowner next door is on an escalator, slowly rising in net worth. This lack of an equity building tool is a silent gap that widens every year, leaving the renter far more vulnerable than the homeowner. Now, the trap deepens when you realize the things you want in retirement are conspiring against you. Because as you age, you want to live in a walkable community with easy access to groceries, parks, and high quality healthcare. You want a safe neighborhood. These are logical needs for a comfortable retirement. Here's the problem though. You and millions of others downsizing, the baby boomers, want the exact same thing. The massive demand on a limited number of desirable neighborhoods creates intense rental market pressures. The renter mint trend. That is what's actively driving up the rents in the very locations that most suitable retirees are looking for. So you're bidding against your own demographic. Is it, but like you say, you got to start the journey to success somewhere. Yes, you're exactly right. You definitely have to start the journey to success somewhere. You can't just give up on it because you're old. Even if you're in your 50s or 60s, you need to be able to find something to do that's got like a 5 or 10 year plan where you're at least sustainable, you know. But if you're in your 30s and 40s and you know that you've got 40 more years left, you can put you a 20-year plan together that puts you in a position so that you are not suffering and struggling the way you're suffering and struggling right now. If you started your work life before 2000 and you are in 2020 and you don't have a safety net, you don't have a financial, you don't have a retirement set up where you can retire now. Because let's understand what retirement used to be. You work a job for 20 years and then you stop working. Let's think about this, because I was talking to somebody about this earlier in the week. Honest to God, back in 1600s, 1800s, early America, life expectancy was 40. Women were marrying men at 23, sometimes earlier than that. And from 23 to 30, between 30 and 40, that is 7 to 17 years. And then the husband was dead. That was it. You worked 20 years from 15. You're 35 with 5 years left to live. And you stop working. You get your pension. Everybody claps for you. Gold watch and enough money to not have to work until you die. Now, you started working at 15. You're 35 and you still have 55 years left. If you didn't know about this back then, but if you didn't get your 20-year plan together at 35, you still got 60 years of work to do. Now that you're 35, 40 years old, if you put your 10-year plan together, your 20-year plan together, you actually, by the time you're 55, can actually stop where governmental retirements put you in your 60s to start getting Social Security disability. If your goal is to make more money for yourself than what the government would ever be able to give you by the time you qualify for government funds, because you know that almost every year they're raising that minimum age range because people are getting older, you will have 25 or 30 years worth of income coming in that through inflation, you not only won't need for nothing, inflation won't supersede the quantity of money you're bringing in. That's the goal. How about a cheap mobile home without the lot rent? That makes no sense. If you got a mobile home, you've got lot rent. Because unless you're parking that bastard in the woods on somebody's property where they don't know that you're there, if that's not your land, it's lot rent. Whether it's a Winnebago, whether it's an RV, whether it's an actual trailer home, whether it's a remanufactured home where they took the wheels off the trailer and made it a fixed home, it could be a double wide. There's lot rent. There's lot rent. Okay. And even if the lot rent includes the utilities, there's lot rent. And that puts you in a bad spot because in those scenarios where there's lot rent, you know that they can foreclose on your mobile home for the lot rent. You own your mobile home, but they own the land on the mobile home is on. And if you don't pay for that, they can take the property that is on the property that they own for collateral for what you didn't pay them. You'll get smarter coming here. So start your journey. You have to have started your journey. If you come into this podcast every night of the week, you definitely gonna get smarter here. You're gonna learn stuff that you ain't never thought about. And then you're gonna start rethinking how you're gonna approach life. Because if half of the stuff that I was telling you was true, when 100% of the stuff I'm telling you is true, but if half of it was true, you got a lot of changes to make in your life. But since everything I tell you is true, because I curate the facts before I bring them to you to make sure that you're getting all updated facts, 2026 facts in 2026, you know that come 2030, this is still going to be facts. You're like, damn, I could go back and look at that evergreen information and be like, shh, I should have listened to this the first time it came out. For people who missed the boat and it's too late, it's never too late. That's what you have to understand. It's never too late. You just realize that now when you're 50, 55 years old, you still got a 20-year plan because look, Michael's 71. If you just figured it out at 50 and you did a 20-year plan, you'd be Michael's age, but you'd still be a millionaire. There's no reason why you can't start now. You just got to change the way you do it. Is there rent for a mobile home is $300 per month? Well, the lot rent is $300 for a month, but no, they got some mobile homes in some cities and some states that are just as much as an apartment. But the lot rent might be $300, like an HOA fee. Is that if I can do it, you can do it too. He ain't lying though. He ain't lying though. We can all get there. And look, this is the thing. You don't have to, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about because I experienced that in Florida. You don't have to make it to the millionaire though. I let you guys know that you can do it and you can get to a million in 20 years. But if you got to a half a million in 20 years, if you got to a quarter million in 10 years, the fact is that if you're putting it in the right position where you're starting to get $40,000-$50,000 a year off of your investment, and your standard of living is 30 to 50,000 a year, all your shit's covered. Once you make more money than your standard of living at any point in time after that, you can stop. But if you want a decent blanket, if you want a decent level where your standard of living is paid for, you got travel money, you got reinvestment on the principal money, so that you can keep expanding on your success, so that you never have to worry about anything. That's what you're looking for, so that inflation never surpasses what you got going on. 30 years from now, you're still making more money than you need. You don't have to start selling shares to offset what you need. See what I'm saying? That's the game plan. We see this scenario playing out as we speak with what's going on with the seniors, because seniors are renting single family homes much more than they were a decade ago. With the trend surging in popular retirement destinations like Florida and across the Sun Belt, while a recent increase in rental construction has eased the pressure in some of these hot markets, the underlying demand from retirees keeps long term prices on an upward trend. And beyond price, there's an even more personal risk, which is displacement. Because as a renter, your housing stability is ultimately not in your hands. It rests with your landlord, and with your landlord only. They might sell the property to cash in on a hot market. They might do a major renovation to attract higher paying tenants, or they might simply move a family member into the unit and move your ass right on out. Imagine being 78, you've lived in your apartment for a decade, for 20, 30 years, your friends are in your building, your doctor is around the corner, then a 60-day notice appears on your door and you have to move. Suddenly, you're thrown into a rental market that's more expensive and more competitive than you can ever remember. And you have to find the energy to pack up a lifetime of belongings and come up with thousands upon thousands of dollars for a new security deposit, moving costs. And this isn't just an inconvenience, it's a profoundly destabilizing event that homeowners with a paid off mortgage will never, ever face. I mean, unless they don't pay their mortgage. Is it mobile home parks or travel resorts that cater to the rich, which means you're still paying that fee, low investment cost per high income. But that's what happens after the fact. You have those low investments because of your high cost of living. But if you have a high income, it is easier to invest in more profitability. If you live cheaper, you can put away more money. It says, are they going to eliminate HOA fees in Florida? No, no. Actually, Florida is one of the most promising places to see what is called a land trust. And what a land trust ends up being is where the land is subjugated from the house. The house is sold with a restricted deed, and the homeowner of the house has to pay rent for the land that the house is on. That's where HOA comes from. And then the property manager, which is the HOA company, manages the streets, dictates the color of the house, what amenities can be added into the yard, all of that stuff. Yeah, HOA suck, but they keep the quality. The HOA keeps the quality of the properties uniform, so that no one house costs substantially more than another, that no one house gets so bad off that it destroys the value of the others, and that the roads in the neighborhood stays at a certain level of quality, so that all of the houses can increase in value uniformly, so that all of the residents of that HOA environment are allegedly supposed to be in peace, even though the people in the HOA community really worry everybody's nerves and make it worse than being in a crime-ridden neighborhood, because at least in a crime-ridden neighborhood you can become homeboys with the local drug dealers, but in an HOA somebody always trying to hop your fence and run off with your stuff because it's not allowed because of HOA policy. It's ridiculous. Mobile home dealers claims that the cost of fees go up approximately 5% each year, but it's not a claim. Actually, the cost and fees of rent go up 3 to 5% every year. So even with a mobile home, the only difference with a mobile home from a remanufactured home or an actual house is that a mobile home still has wheels on it. You dropped it off with your Ford F-150, you can hook it up and drive your house to another city or another state. That's the only difference. A manufactured home or a remanufactured home could be a mobile home where they took the wheels off of it and grounded it to that particular, that cemented it into the ground kind of thing, built a porch and a deck in front of the trailer. But that's really all it is. It's a trailer it's a house that can be relocated. But the costs are still going to be the cost. You're paying already for the use of the land. That's what the HOA is for. You're paying for the use of the land. I can never live in an HOA with a bunch of Karens. And that is why when you're looking at real estate, when you decide to go and buy something, the first thing you want to do is filter your search to eliminate HOA properties. Is that if you don't pay your taxes, it becomes mine, the government. Right, but if you don't pay the HOA penalty, the house belongs to the HOA. So they can fine you because your grass is too high, and if you don't want to pay the fine, they can foreclose on your house for the price of cutting your grass. You paid $500,000 for this house, but because of a $1,000 fine for cutting the grass, they will take your $500,000 house because you didn't cut the grass. I ain't playing with them. I really be trying to get a house. If I'm buying houses, I'm talking about trying to buy some in the unincorporated area so I can put a gun range in the back. You feel me? What do you think about container homes? I appreciate that question. You got folks that are taking shipping containers and turning them into apartments. You see that on social media. I don't think it's realistic. I think it's a fad. Um, you're not raising your family in a shipping container. There's no reason for that. And I also believe that you should. I mean, they've got mini homes. Instead of living in a shipping container, you can get you a mini home. You can get you one of those like Lego block style houses that like Elon Musk made for like $72,000 and just fold it out and build your house without having to live in a shipping container. The ones that they showboat on TV, yeah, they're fancy, but think about how much you're paying for that shipping container home. You're spending a few $100,000 to live in a shipping container, and it outside of it being made of steel, it doesn't really give you much more benefit. The equity in it is less than the equity in a house, and that shipping container is not going to grow in equity over time the way a house would. How about buying the land and building something on it? You can buy the land and build something on it. It's cheaper to do it that way. Yeah, it's cheaper to buy. Okay, so typically in modern times, if you buy land for 20 grand, you can spend $250,000 and put a decent sized house on there. Whatever kind of house you want. Customize it your way. Property taxes on the property is going to be established after the house is finished being built. So, I mean, that's good, but usually it takes 18 months to build it. Sometimes 6 months, but usually with all complications aside, you're looking at 18 months to build a house. If you're trying to move out of your dad's house, you're not going to wait 18 months to build a house from the ground up. You're going to spend $250,000 on a house that was built in 1961. That's what you're going to do. You can build a cabin much, much cheaper, less value in it. It tickles the heart, but it doesn't provide you with the financial security that you need if you needed to take out a capital loan. Shipping containers is pretty dope. It is for the young kids. The young kids look at those shipping containers because, I mean, the young kids who live in their room playing their video games and listen to their mom cuss them out about going outside and playing with their friends will look at a shipping container and be like, fuck yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Because you don't care what kind of space you're in. But from an investor standpoint, the value of a shipping container is going to be less than $100,000. You can't mortgage your shipping container to get $500,000 to do anything with. And from a financial standpoint, it looks cool, but there's no monetary value in it. It's not worth getting. You can be living in it within a week. If you get a shipping container, you can be living in it within a week, but there's no value in it. With a log cabin, it can be built in less than a month, but there's no monetary value in that neither. You can build you a log cabin in the woods that you use to go hunting with during the summertime. It could be a winter cabin that you go out there and go skiing and stuff. And it could be, because it's a log cabin with no monetary value, no property insurance. There's no extra costs on there. The property, the log cabin could have so little value to it that there's no property taxes on it. But guess what? You still can't leverage it to get equity. You have a financial problem, you're going to have to sell your house from the city. You can remove container whenever it's done. You can move the container wherever you want to, but you can't use that container to get yourself a house or buy you a car or fix your old car or pay for your medical expenses. Ship container devalues over time, but increases if you build a cabin. Yes, but how many decades is that cabin going to have to sit there before that cabin is worth enough money for you to take an equity loan on it? Great advice. Thank you. You're welcome. Log cabins do not have that much equity in them. I've saved $180,000 in rent over 7 years. Smart move. Mortgage mean death contract. Well, what you want to do is you want to have a few family members have you as a survivorship on the deed so that when they pass, you ain't got to fight for it in escrow. I mean, in probate court. Save your rent money and invest it. That exactly. Invest it in places other than a log cabin. What's wrong with using 2x4s? Nothing. Nothing at all. There's just no value in it. Should have said tiny homes. That's my point. Okay, so if you go talk about a tiny home is like $75,000, and it's gonna still be worth $75,000 in 15, 20 years. But the tiny home, you could put like 5 of those on an acre of property and start up a mini city. You could start up a mini city and start charging rent. Have 1 acre of property and 5 tenants. If you're doing a mini home, a mini home that's like less than 100 square feet, and you've got an acre of property, you could probably put 10 or 20 mini homes down and charge a bunch of rent. But again, those properties don't hold as much value as a standardized house. So I think everyone thinks log cabins. Nope, just you. You're the only one thinking log cabins. And Cali, want to build home off the grid. What do you suggest? California is not a good place to build anything because California had a forest fire for 2 months and burned more than half of the state. I don't think you want to build a property in a place that is highly volatile such as that. And then not too long after, a couple weeks after that, the exact same state got flooded out. And this just happened last year. I don't think it's a good idea for you to build. If you're going to build it doesn't matter what state in the country you're going to build a house. If you're going to build it off the grid, the first thing you want to do is get you a property that is not in a fire zone, that does not have high heat, high winds, or if it has winds, it's cool breezes. You're not looking at heat waves. You also want to get you a property, if you're getting it off the grid, you want to get something that's not in a flood zone. If you can avoid the flood zones, no hurricanes, no tornadoes, or if you got to deal with a hurricane, no tornadoes, very little earthquakes, no fire zone, no flood zone. You cover that, flood, fire, and tornado. If you can avoid that, settle for less and just build you a house off the grid. Can you do the borrow, buy, die strategy only with real estate or also with the stock portfolio? The borrow, buy, you can, okay, so the borrow, buy, die strategy requires you to borrow money from yourself buy a bunch of stuff. So like if you have like a life insurance policy and all of this other stuff, 401ks and all this other stuff, you want to liquidate all of your capital, all of your investment opportunities, buy a bunch of stuff, and then put it into a trust, and then you die, and your beneficiaries inherit all of that stuff, where they inherit stuff with no debt attached to it. You can do that with real estate, and the problem with stocks is that if the stocks are not in a trust, you still have to go through probate, and probate is going to be going through the estate. What's going to happen is that whatever that person owes is going to get paid off first, and then whatever stocks they have left are going to go to you, and then there might be, depending on state laws, taxation on the quantity of capital that you inherited, which is identified as an inheritance tax. As far as generating revenue, stocks is better than real estate, as far as fast cash, but because it has little to no effort from it. The real estate is going to give you more money than the stock options, because the real estate is going to give you the ability to have tax credits off your profits, because when you mortgage a property to get you another property, your tenants are paying on the mortgage, but you took money out of the loans and paid yourself. So if you get you a $500,000 house, you can mortgage it for 300,000, pay yourself 100,000, put 200,000 on another property, and have your tenant paying that $300,000 mortgage, where you pocketed 100 grand, and it's not considered an income. It's not a realized income. It's a non-realized income. That's the kind of stuff that people pull off with real estate. A stock option, you really only get the dividends if you have a dividend portfolio, and then you only benefit from leveraging the growth by taking out an equity line of credit towards the stock option, and then spending the cash from that, and then having to pay that back either out of your pocket or from the dividends from the stock portfolio. So yeah, you can get more money with less effort from the stock option than what you can with real estate, but you can go a whole lot further with real estate than what you can with a stock option. Real estate trumps everything. Real estate only trumps what your properties are worth. Real estate is easier to expand upon if you have the money to pay for it. Stocks are easier to build upon if you don't have the capital gains. So you can gain more stock options and build a larger portfolio and take that money with you around the world and never have a drop of real estate, or you can own houses in every country around the world and never have a stock option, or you can do both. That governor is a nut in California. Yeah, but they don't water their grass. So brush fires are quick, and smokers flick their butts into the ground and think that it's good because they don't get the littering ticket. But when you think about how that cigarette butt tumbleweeded down the street, set a leaf on fire, the summer breeze picks up that flaming leaf, it touches down on some twine, that catches fire, gets on a pine cone, that catches fire, gets on a tree, that catches fire, and now the whole neighborhood is on fire. One flicked a cigarette butt out of a moving car set half the state on fire because one, y'all litter, and two, ain't nobody outside trying to water the forest to prevent a forest fire. With real estate, well, with real estate, you still got to pay with it's estate tax, not just real estate tax. It's going to be your estate. So all of your money, all of your stuff, houses, cars, boats, yachts, everything, and all of your debt. So if you have a stock portfolio and you have unpaid collectors when you die, even if it was 7 years ago, if it is collectible, that bill collector will come and get their money out of your estate, not just your property. Every debt, including a dental bill, when you die, if you owe somebody money and they're notified and the debt still lingers, they can come and snatch it as long as it's inside of the statute of limitations. Property taxes and maintenance plus costly and doesn't really pay. That's what people think. But if you're buying a house for aesthetics. You're getting an overly expensive house, living up to the Joneses so that you can prove that you've got a nice house. If you're getting a homestead, if you're getting a place that's going to fit you and maybe your partner, that's like a one bedroom house. If you're getting something for you, your partner, and your kids, you might want to get like a 2 or 3 bedroom house, right? That's it. You're looking at $100,000, $200,000 for a house. You can get that with a decent sized yard on it in certain states in the United States where the property taxes is less than $500 a year. And then they also have homestead tax exemptions where they take off $500 towards that. Then, if you're over the age of, I think, 60 or 69, they also have tax exemption where they put a hold on your tax value so that they're not inflating your tax year over year. So instead of you paying more and more taxes every year, you just hold the house, use the tax credit to pay on the house. You don't owe shit every year. There's nothing to pay. So you go from paying rent every month to paying off your house and paying nothing every month because you're tax exempt on your property at 70 years old. That's a best retirement to be in. You own the house and you don't have to pay taxes on it because you're tax exempt. You can't get there if you don't start buying a house 30 years ago when you picked it up in your 40s. Unless you bought it in the 50s. No, you could have bought it. If you bought it 30 years ago, you could have bought it in 2010 and still would be that way. He means die poor. Oh yeah, absolutely you can. Absolutely you can die poor. There you go. Amazon was $2 to $3 in the late '90s, and it was $3,000 in 2016. Read about history, but live in the present. I mean, I guess like an apartment complex, I agree with you, but single family homes, nah. Because what if your single tenant doesn't or can't pay? Well, the thing about single family homes is that you are supposed to establish the type of tenant that has a seemingly guaranteed income. One of the better ways to go about doing it is to utilize your single family home through a Section 8 program where you're getting government funds if you only have one single family home. But if you have a multitude of single family homes, then the ones that don't pay on time are offset by the ones that do pay on time. And if you put you a little bit of a nest egg there to cover the expenses of the properties, you're just waiting on your due, but they're going to give you your money with interest if they pay late. But even in an apartment complex, think about October when the feds were shut down and nobody had a job. If 80% of that apartment complex were federal agents, it would have been a 200 unit apartment complex where over 100 and something tenants couldn't pay their rent. That's one of the risks that you take with real estate that you don't have to take with the stock market. There's ups and downs with every investment opportunity. It is easier to make money if you do your homework. It minimizes your risk. Now that is 100% true. Not everything is guaranteed, but it's not necessarily a pitfall everywhere you look. You just have to find ways to cover most of the things that you can predict, and then put a little bit on the side for the things that you can't predict, and then leverage the rest. So with real estate, you can avoid taxes, but not with stocks. Yes, because with real estate, the mortgage is deducted off of your taxes because that's paying back a loan. With stocks, they only give you about $3,000 worth of tax credits for losses in the market. Everything else you've got to pay for. You have a different tax bracket for buy and hold stocks, where you might still pay on the dividends, but you might not pay on the growth. Either way, stocks are going to cost you more than real estate. But stocks you'll be able to build faster than real estate, and you might utilize your stocks to buy into real estate. So it's not for not getting both. It's just, easier to get into stocks than it is to get into real estate. So it's best to be penniless, but have access to a trust or create a trust that owns businesses. You want a trust that owns businesses, businesses that owns your properties, and then you want to put your capital somewhere else that is also owned by another trust so that your properties don't affect your money. Your money doesn't affect your debt, Your debt doesn't affect you. And when you die, something else already owns all of your stuff. So the person who takes control over your stuff just takes control over it. So the government doesn't have to issue it to somebody else on your behalf. It's already been issued. That's what beneficiaries are for. So technically, on paper, you stay penniless and you benefit from the access to everything. So commercial real estate is a way to go. The commercial real estate is good if you can afford it, but if you can't, single family homes is equally as good, because if you start off with one single family home, you can diversify to two, and then you can leverage both of them to get four. And at some point, you can leverage all four of them to get something commercial. But it's a growth thing. If you're just starting out, you're not starting out with $1 million property. You're starting out with a $250,000 house or less. Absolutely right. You like Nevada, New Mexico, Albany, Arkansas, all flat and property values still the same. Yeah, so those are good places where you can go and pick you up a $125,000 house, like an acre, 2 acres of property, $200,000 house, 5, 7 acres of property, where you could take that 5 or 7 acre property and build houses around the main house that's on the property and turn that one lot into multiple rental opportunities. Because for every quarter acre can be one house. So if you have an acre, you can put a second house on that acre. And if you have 5 acres, you can put like 6 more houses on there, and then you can start generating money off of buying one plot of land. You just got to build the houses. Uh, he said, renters always don't pay rent, or late, or come up with excuses, or skip in the middle of the night, or they lost their jobs and expect not to pay rent. I mean, yeah, a lot of those things happen, but you don't have to deal with a lot of that when you're dealing with um, HUD and Section 8, because the United States government gives you money as long as the property is up to code and the tenant is still in the building. So, and when the government shut down, HUD and Section 8 still got their rent money. So, when you start going into real estate, if you really wanted to start with guaranteed funds, you don't want to start with the middle class household. You want to start with the poor, because Uncle Sam is going to pay you every month, regardless. Everybody else is speculative, but the United States government is guaranteed. So your best bet, if you're going into real estate, you want to start off by doing Section 8 housing, because also with Section 8 housing, you have the special economic zones where you might be able to find grants and other government funds to subsidize your expansion, because you're working on the at-risk community and aiding in developing a need for the country. You can get supported by the United States government doing that, which saves on some of your overhead and allows you to expand faster. You're still going to turn a profit because somebody's got to pay the rent. It just depends on how you want to do it. Is I ain't arguing, I'm learning. Oh, I'm not fussing. I haven't even raised my voice yet. The microphone is just right up against my mouth. I'm calm right now. Cheaper to build a duplex. You live in one side, rent the other one. I mean, that mythology is on paper fantastic, but technically, if you're going to do it like that, it's cheaper to just buy a duplex, because you don't have to wait the 2 years to build it. You don't have to spend $500,000 to build it, and you're only subsidizing, just like you would if you was leasing out the other rooms in your apartment. You're only subsidizing the space. Where if you charge enough money to the other tenants on the property, they're paying the cost of the property for you, so that you don't have to pay it. That's the only reason why it's cheaper. So if you have an $800 a month expense and you have tenants paying $1,100 a month to stay on the property, they're covering your expense. But if you had an in-law suite or a mother-in-law suite, or a what do they call those? The guest house in the backyard, and you're charging $1,100 for the guest house, and the property taxes is $1,000 for the house. Or if the property taxes for the year is like $6,000, but they're paying like $800 a month for the guest house, the person living in the guest house is paying for the land. You don't have to worry about it no more. That's the reason why people do that. They pay it off in less than 8 years if you're being financially responsible. Yeah, studio apartments, same thing. Studio apartments, lofts. You got people who are now renovating their attics and turning their attics into a bedroom, and then they rent out the attic and have the rest of the family downstairs. And now they're making like $600 a month off a space that used to be used as storage. And if they're charging $700 a month or $800 a month, and $100 of that is going towards the stuff in storage, they still made a $500 a month profit off of letting a stranger live upstairs. So we completely trailed off the topic about elderly people renting versus buying, but yes, we did cover a lot of real estate just now. I appreciate that dynamic. He said by 2039 you can rent a serial space out. Probably. It depends. The final piece of the trap that you're going to be experiencing once you start reaching 55 and older is how your own needs evolve and how the market charges a premium for those needs. The apartment that was perfect at 55 might be impractical at 75 as mobility becomes a bigger factor. You may suddenly need a home with no stairs, a walk-in shower, or even an elevator. In the rental market, these are called amenities, and amenities cost extra money. So the first floor apartments or the ones in buildings with an elevator will command a premium rent. So you'll find yourself forced to pay more money, not for luxury, but for simple safety and necessity. If you think about it, in a lot of apartment complexes, you will find the third, fourth, fifth floor cheaper than the first, second, and third floor because those are by demand. Can I have it on the first floor? Yeah, but it'll cost you more. And you'll find yourself forced to pay more, not for that luxury, right? And this is going to lead to many individuals considering that 55 plus active adult community. Assisted living, bro, assisted living sucks. It's good, but it sucks. And the reason why it sucks is because you're paying an extra premium to have in-home nurses and doctors and medication. And if you're going to one of those nursing homes, you lose all of your authority as an adult. Convenience, definitely. No, convenience costs you money and it pays us money for those of us that leverage that convenience for a price. But see, these 55 plus communities, some people, oh yeah, that's a good place to be. On the surface, they seem like the perfect solution. They're offering social structure, amenities, maintenance-free living, but these communities are businesses priced accordingly. They are selling a lifestyle, and that lifestyle often comes with much higher price tags than a standard apartment. On top of that, your household may change. Divorce, widowhood, or children moving out leads to a sharp rise in solo living after 50. And then the other issue that you're going to have with 55 and older, if you're 55, living in a 55 and older community, that is a restricted mandatory. So guess what happens if you're 55 and older and your girlfriend or your boyfriend is 53? They can't live on the property with you because the entire community is mandatorily required to be over the age of 55. Yeah. So, grandpa, you can't take your 18-year-old in and let them crash on your couch for a little bit because they're not 55. They can't live in the community. They're seen driving around a neighborhood too many times. Your status in that apartment complex is going to be challenged. Assisted living in the United States is $5,000 to $10,000 a month. It's better in Asia and much cheaper. This is why we're going to Asia, passport bro now. Because if you go to Asia, not only is it cheaper for assisted living, you're also going to have assisted childcare, subsidized childcare, and you're going to have women that respect you as a man. All the things you don't get in the United States. I don't know. The bulletin keeps getting better. Now, he said, welcome to Getting Old. New friends, been gay in preparation H. Isopropyl alcohol. You're looking at icy hot. Lidocaine patches. Walkers with wheels on them. Power chairs. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Handicap on the front and in the back, because they don't look for the handicap plate on the back of the car. They flag you down about the handicap thing on the front. When you're part of a dual income couple, the rent was manageable back in those days. And as a single person on a single retirement income, you're now bearing 100% of that ever increasing house cost. So finding a roommate in your 70s and 80s introduces a whole new level and layer of compromises and potential instability. And if this is starting to sound alarmingly familiar and you're wondering, what can you do about it? Take a second. Make sure you guys listen to Michael and hit that like button, hit that subscription button. A small click for you, but it tells us that this is the kind of real unfiltered financial conversations that you want more of. And it also triggers the algorithm to show it to a lot more people. Now, y'all know that I don't ever find a problem without bringing you a solution. So we spent a lot of our time tonight talking about the problem. Now let's pivot to the solution, because this isn't a message of despair. It's a message of awareness. And with awareness comes power. There is, in fact, a different way to think about this. Let's break it down. 4 decades, we've been told renting is a temporary phase before you achieve the American dream of homeownership. The narrative is that if you're still renting past 50, you've somehow fallen behind. But what if that's completely wrong? What if renting, done with a clear strategy, isn't a trap, but a tool for financial freedom? This is going to require a mindset shift. So let's stop thinking like a tenant and start thinking like an investor. He says, so you have to get married in your 70s to combine income. Actually, no. You don't want to get married in your 70s to combine income. And you want to know why? The United States does 150% for joint married couples. Now, you think, oh, that's good. Right, to a degree. But, and it benefits in the stock market. It benefits in the stock market because you'll get $97,000 worth of covered money in your stock market. 64,000 for head of household, and I think it's like 34,000 for single. But think about it. If you're head of household and she's single, still $97,000. Everything else, 150%, means that one of y'all is getting half. Each individual person that claims individually gets 100% of what they're entitled to as far as deductions, discounts, and income levels. So if she's got Social Security and her address is over here, and he's got Social Security and his address is over there, and they live on the same spot, because those two addresses are not the same, it's not going to be 150% of the joint income. It's going to be 200% of single incomes. So if he's getting $1,000 a month and she's getting $1,000 a month, it's not going to come together and be $1,500 a month because they got married. They will live single and be common dwellers or common law dwellers, domestic housing, however you want to word that, where each person's $1,000 comes together and they live a $1,500 standard of living with $2,000 worth of income from the government. They've got a tightrope walk on that, because if anybody slips up and talks about how they're living with somebody else with an income, everybody's money gets fucked up. You've seen how Trump just said, well, we're going to stop people's benefits until they pay us back what they owe us, for people who got, oh yeah, that's called domestic terrorism. Yeah. The people who got paid too much money on their Social Security benefits, they stop their payments until they're paid off, till they're reimbursed, which means some individuals no longer have benefits, even though they benefited from the money when they got overpaid. An error from the government, they're taking it out of the tenant, out of the receiver. So let's cross over something real quick. Have you ever wondered why many extremely wealthy people who could buy entire apartment buildings with cash choose to rent their properties as a primary residence? It seems counterintuitive. Why would they throw away money on rent? The answer is simple: liquidity and flexibility. The wealthy understand that a primary home is often deeply illiquid assets, tying up millions of dollars in a single piece of real estate that doesn't produce an income, because you're living on it, you're not profiting from it. That's often a poor use of capital. That money is trapped. Instead, buying a $3 million condo, which is a wealthy individual, they might rent an identical one for $15,000 a month. The difference between buying the condo and renting the condo is that instead of them putting up $3 million up front for this condo, they're making payments on it over an extended period of time, which will be equivalent to if you were paying a massive ass mortgage on $3 million. So they then take that $3 million that you didn't have to put on buying that condo, since it would have been locked up in that. Instead, they put that into property and invest it into a diversified portfolio of assets that generate cash flow and also appreciates, where the dividends off of their investment covers that $15,000 a month. Their mantra is this: be an investor first and a resident second. So they separate the function of where I live from the function of how my money grows. By renting, they maintain maximum financial flexibility. Their capital is working for them 24/7 in the market, not sitting dormant in the walls of their house. This principle is scalable, and it's a lesson for every person over 50 who is currently renting. Don't condos managed by an HOA? No, not always. Some of them are, they do have some condos that are managed by an HOA, but they also have some that you take care of your own place. But they do have a scenario where like the somebody takes care of the outside of the place, because you're only buying a unit. But no, not all of them have HOAs, but some of them do. So it's about cash flow. Yes. The difference between living off of the money that you worked for and paying on your house versus taking the money you worked for, investing it into high interest accounts that are going, brokerage accounts that are going to pay you enough dividends to pay for your house, is that you are not paying for your house. If you have a fixed income that's paying for your house, as the cost of your house increases, your income is fixed. It will surpass your income. But if you're investing your money in high interest portfolios that's increasing in revenue and paying you dividends, The dividends are paying your house. Your house is still covered, but where your money is flowing from is more lucrative because you not only have the principal, you're also living off the dividends, the interest from the principal. So you could always have a catastrophe and pull some of your principal out. But if you're living on a fixed income, whatever you're getting for this month, that's all you got. So here's the core of the solution. If you're going to rent for long term, especially into retirement, you must become an asset renter. An asset renter makes the strategic choice to rent, but they commit to systematically investing the capital that would have otherwise gone to home ownership. So this isn't a vague promise to save more. It's a disciplined strategy. It means taking the money that you are not spending on a down payment, on property taxes, on homeowners insurance, on the maintenance for a house, and redirecting it into a dedicated investment portfolio. This allows you to live renter life now, preparing for rental life in the future. It's a rat race to keep up with inflation. Most of the time, yes. The goal is to stay ahead of inflation. If you own your home, it's a private bank. But until you own your home, it's a liability. Until you've paid it off, it is a financial liability. So the $3 million property might not want to invest in that. You might want to rent that and put $3 million somewhere else. So that $3 million will make you $150,000, or actually off of $3 million, you'll probably be making $450,000 to take that $15,000 a month out of the profit and put it towards the apartment that you're renting, because it doesn't matter. You technically don't own anything. Your trust owns stuff. Your business owns stuff. The business that owns the business owns stuff. The trust that owns the trust owns stuff. You, as a beneficiary, benefit from everything. So when you start thinking like a billionaire, it's not about your name being on the deed. It's about you having legal control over the asset. And if you have the capabilities of paying 3 months of rent every month, in 3 years, you would have paid 9 years worth of rent. You know where you're going to stay at for the next 6 years, because they owe you possession of premises for 6 more years under the old amount. They can't raise the rent on months that you've already paid for. They can give you a notice to raise the rent after the money you've put up has expired, but they cannot raise the rent on money you've already prepaid for, which grandfathers you into the old amount. Because if they decide to contract you into something else and you don't agree with it, they got to reimburse you for 6 years of money that they already spent. They're not going to do that. Your LLC owns your stuff. Your LLC is not the only way to own the stuff, because C corporations can own stuff too. LLCs is what people think about when they're trying to take the short road, but a C corporation can own your stuff equally as well. And the difference between a C corporation and an LLC is that a C corporation can donate to charities and get tax deductions towards any profits that it makes. So if you have a C corporation that's holding your financial assets, and then you have a access to a 501c3 that you can donate into, and that 501c3 is philanthropy, doing good deeds in the neighborhood, which not only boosts your reputation, but is a tax write-off, then you have the capabilities of having less taxation on some of the C corporations and trusts that you have, because your money is going towards a good cause. The extra money that would have gone to Uncle Sam is going towards a good cause. And again, if you're doing real estate that's working in the market of at-risk communities and low-income families, where Section 8 and HUD will get a massive increase of available housing, the government's probably going to throw a bunch of grants at you anyway, which means that you, as an executive member of the board, can potentially get up to 5% of the money that's being donated. Well, the whole board divides that 5%, but the 5% still comes in, and the board members get to split that up. So if you've got $1 million nonprofit there that's doing real estate ventures, your board of potentially 10 people can split that 10%, or 5% is what it is. which makes people stop and think, why aren't anybody putting in any effort? Because a nonprofit isn't supposed to be turning profits. They want to get to be a billionaire quick. You're not going to get a billionaire quick by helping other people, but you will be definitely financially stable and loved by the masses. So if you're trying to build a portfolio for your later, this portfolio is going to have one job, and it's going to be to grow into a financial engine powerful enough to cover the rising rent in your retirement years while overshooting inflation. So let's run the numbers with an example. If we have a couple that's 55 years old, in scenario A, a traditional path that people might take is that they buy a condo for $400,000 or a house or something like that. They put 20% down, which is about $80,000, with the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and an HOA fee in some scenarios. Their monthly housing payments is about $2,800 a month, and you're going to add another $300 a month for surprise costs. And their true monthly cost of living is going to be about $3,100 just for the property, not utilities and all of this other stuff, just the property. Scenario B, if you're using the asset renter path, same couple keeps renting in a similar place for $2,500, and this is going to be $600 less than the estimated home ownership cost for the same property. But here's going to be the key. They take the $80,000 that they would have used for the down payment on a house and invest that immediately into a diversified low-cost index portfolio. They take that $600 a month difference and they set up an automatic reoccurring investment into that same portfolio. Now, let's see what happens, because assuming that conservatively, we're looking at an average of around 7% annual return. After 10 years at age 65, their portfolio would have grown to approximately $267,000. After 20 years at age 75, that same portfolio would have swelled to approximately $655,000. At 75, that same couple is still renting. Yes, but their rent has gone up. That $2,500 a month rent grown 3.5% annually and would now be about $5,000 a month. But look at the position that they're in. They have a liquid asset of over $650,000. Using a standard 4% withdrawal rate, that portfolio can generate over $26,000 a year, or about $2,100 a month, to subsidize their rent at 4%. But if it was paying that same 7% dividend, you would be looking at almost $50,000 a year, which is double the standard of living, without ever touching the principal. They have built their own rent subsidy machine, so they don't throw away any of the money. They used it, renting, as leverage to build a powerful financial asset down the line. Now, this is the power of being an asset renter. But, and this is the most important part, it is only working if you are disciplined. So you must invest the difference every time. So how do you actually build the machine? Here's going to be 4 steps. Build the housing reverse fund. Before anything else, you must create your own stability. Build a separate cash account holding 6 to 12 months worth of rent. This is going to be your buffer against sudden renter hikes or unexpected moves. It covers the moving costs and any new security deposits without causing any panic. Do not skip this part. Step 2, you want to model your future rent. You can't hit a target that you can't see. So project what your rent will likely be in the future. Open a spreadsheet. Apply 3%, 4%, and even 5% annual increases for the next 20 to 30 years. This exercise might be a little bit scary to look at, but it's essential because it shows you the size of the problem that you're about to solve before it becomes a problem. Now, you're going to invest and make this goal to be to build a portfolio large enough to neutralize that future cost when it arises. And step three is going to be to invest income and growth. So in your 50s and early 60s, and in Michael's early 70s, focus on growth, mainly through diversified, low cost stock market index funds. Any of the stocks that I have shown you guys on the show before that are by far some of the cheapest ones that they've got out there, undervalued stocks that are turning out upward of between 15 and 18, 19% interest right now in the current market. After interest rates got slashed December 12th, they're still rocking hard. And you watch them on a weekly basis, you follow the media, you invest, you build, and you utilize that as you get closer to retirement. Then you can begin to shift all of those allocations to include more income generating assets like dividend paying stocks, real estate investment trusts, or government bonds. The goal is going to be to gradually transform the portfolio from a growth engine into a cash flow machine that helps you pay your rent. Now, step number four is going to be to execute the home equity strategy for current homeowners. If you are over 50, and for some situation you might own a home, you are sitting on a powerful tool. Selling your home can be a single most powerful move to jumpstart your asset renter strategy, and it allows you to instantly cash in on decades of forced savings. You can take the proceeds from your house sale, invest them, and potentially generate enough income to cover your rent from day one. Now, it's not giving up on home ownership, it's graduating to a more efficient financial model. However, you can also leverage that property for a decent quantity of equity, rent out that property, and take the capital and put it up into a stock option and flip that. For example, you've got a $500,000 house, take 300,000 out of it, put a tenant in there, they're paying for the mortgage, you put 300,000 in the stock option, and from day one, if you're turning over 15% interest on that, you're making what, $45,000 a year of dividends that's being reinvested into the principal. You let that sit for 10 or 20 years, you're guaranteedly crossing over $1 million. You keep your home, you're still renting another property, your money's making money for you. The decision of where you live in retirement has no single right answer, but the only right answer is that this is going to be for you. So let's walk through the four different paths, because case one is the market renter. If you got a couple that sold their large family home, netting a tax-free profit of nearly $500,000, they invested the entire amount and embraced the asset renter philosophy. They moved into a modern apartment that's located in downtown for about $3,000 a month. The pros of this is that their lifestyle would instantly upgrade with restaurants and gyms and pools nearby, and they would travel without worrying about home maintenance. And financially, their portfolio is generating over $20,000 a year, which is about $1,667 a month, covering more than half of their rent. And they have the ultimate flexibility and liquidity that anyone could ever acquire. Now, the cons of that is that they're fully exposed to the rent inflation, and they must manage their investments wisely to ensure their portfolio's growth outpaces their rising house costs. They have no control over the building's management and face the risks of displacement whenever the properties change over or the properties change over the tenants. Case study number two is that 55 plus community dweller. An individual that's a widower or a widow might find themselves in a house isolated. So they sell the house and move to a high-end 55 plus active adult rental community. It has all-in monthly rent of $4,200 a month, way higher than the previous property that we were looking at. Pros here is that the lifestyle will be filled with activity and built-in social network. Rent would include access to clubhouses, fitness classes, and all the maintenance included. The environment is all purpose built for seniors and gives you the feeling of safety and connection. The cons is that the convenience comes at a significantly high premium, and you'll still have a renter dynamic that is subject to annual rent increases from the corporation that owns the community. So you would have essentially bought a lifestyle, but the price for that lifestyle is not fixed. Case study number 3 is going to be the CCRC plan. If you're the kind of person that fears becoming a burden on the children, you choose to continue care in a retirement community. Continued care retirement communities is CCRCs. This requires a one-time entry fee of $300,000 plus a monthly fee of $5,500. Who in the fuck is paying for that? That's like buying a house and then paying rent for it after that. But people do it. If you do that for that peace of mind, that CCRC contract guarantees the place to live for life with access to full continuum of care from independent living to skilled nurses at a predictable cost. The cons of this shit is that it costs immensely. You would have to have liquidated a huge portion of your investment portfolio for the entry fee, reducing potential for market growth over time. You'd be locked into their system because you're contracted for life, and leaving can be a complex and lengthy process with liabilities involved on both sides. Case study number 4, downsized as an owner. If you're weary of renting, you sell a large house and use the proceeds to buy a smaller house or a condo, like $280,000 for cash. The pros is you own the home in a retirement mortgage free environment. Your primary house cost is a fixed and predictable HOA fee of like $700 a month plus taxes and insurance with Karen coming and fucking with your shit for less than the cost of rent. And this is completely insulated from rent inflation and is building a small amount of equity over time. The cons is not free of financial risk because the HOA can raise its fees or levy huge special assessments for major repairs or fining you for bullshit like a birdhouse in the front yard, costing you tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. And that $280,000 is not in the market working for you. So your stability might be there, but it has sacrifices of liquidity and flexibility where you have to bow to the demands of HOA so that you don't lose your position. Knowledge without action is just trivia. So here are 5 steps to take control of your own housing future. Run those numbers. Do your research, just like Michael said. Stop guessing. Open spreadsheets, open Excel, open Outlook. Input your current income, savings, and your expenses. Then project your rent for the next 30 years, increasing it by no less than a realistic 4% annual, but you can go up to 5 or 6 and really look at some high numbers. See what the compounding expenses does to your financial plan. Does your projected income keep the pace or not? This stress test is not testing your stress today. It is stressing the test of the money tomorrow. And this is the most important financial exercise that you will need to do in 2026. The next thing you want to do is you want to build a stability fund. And this is going to be your first move. You have to start saving until you have a separate account with at least 6 to 12 months, if not 18 months worth of rent in your current status. This is not your regular emergency fund. This is your housing stability fund. And it is sole purpose for absorbing house shocks, buying you time and options. But it's not forever, because 6 months to a year and a half, that's all you got before the shit hits the fan. So you still have to find another way. Number 3 is location scouting like a pro. You have to think like a long-term investor. Research cities and neighborhoods based on their long-term visibility for retirees. Consider the tax situation for retirees, public transportation, and proximity to quality health care. Then here's another thing you also have to consider. What kind of neighbors you're about to deal with, because you're going to be stuck here for a minute, bro. Your goal is to find a balance between affordability today and stability tomorrow. Then number 4, you have to become a lease savvy negotiator. Stop treating your lease as a document that you just sign without reading. It is a business contract. And when your lease is up for renewal, don't just accept the proposed increase. Ask for a meeting. See if you can negotiate a multi-year lease for a smaller fixed annual increase, because that is how you guarantee it. So if your rent is up and you plan on staying there for at least 2 more years, try talking them in a 24-month instead of another 12. Try talking them into a 36-month instead of another 12. And if you can get a 36-month with a fixed amount, your rent won't go up for 3 more years, which guarantees you stability right now in the current community that you're in. A small negotiation can save you thousands of dollars over the long term. Then you want to consult with a specialist. That's the 5th and best thing to do, is consult with a specialist. Your financial future is too important for generic advice. You have to seek out a fiduciary financial advisor, specifically a certified financial planner who has experience in retirement planning. You want to ask them about their experience modeling rent versus buy scenarios for retirees. Then they can help you run your numbers and build a personalized asset renter plan. Nobody thinks about this stuff. We're so busy over the past 15, 20 years doing that YOLO shit. You only live once, live it to the fullest. But when your ass get old, you ain't YOLOing no more. You just trying to survive. You done switched on your self-preservation mode, and all of your bad decisions are catching up with you. And now you have to exist in what might very well be turmoil, because you have very limited solutions. You're running out of network. Everybody's dying because you're old and they're older. You're running out of options because you have as many people as you can rely on for financial backups. You don't have the ability to work. You don't have extra revenues of income because you didn't build them up when you had the physical capabilities to make that extra money. Now you're stuck with the limited quantities of financial opportunities that you have, and you have to utilize them to the maximum quantities of your availability, recognizing that inflation is surpassing your direct deposits. If you're not planning for your future, you're making less money than you need. And that is when you're 70 years old and a door greeter at Home Depot, Walmart, and Lowe's because you need more money than what's coming in. Not because you're bored and you just like people. See what I'm saying? Well, we started by challenging the belief that monthly rent is a simple, predictable cost. And we've shown how after 50, it can become a dynamic, compounding force that can undermine a retirement plan in no time. The passive approach that works in your 30s and your 40s becomes a major risk when you're on a fixed income. But the key takeaway here is not to fear. It's empowerment. A passive, uninformed renter is in a tough spot, but a strategic, disciplined asset renter is in a position of power, flexibility, and control. The choice is no longer just rent versus buy. The real choice is whether you'll be a passive consumer of housing or an active architect of your financial future. Will you let your largest expense be a relentless drain, or will you use it as a motivation to build a powerful income generating asset? Is as the high school should be teaching financial planning to young people, but they don't. It's unbelievable. But the high schools that are public schools should be getting the 10% that you bring to the church because it's tax deductible. You don't get a voucher from the church for the 10% that you give to the church. If you make 50,000 a year and you're giving 10,000 a year to the church, you don't get a voucher from the church. But if you make 10,000 a year and you're giving it to the school, you're getting receipts from the school, and you give that 10,000 a year to Uncle Sam, and they take 10,000 off the money that you owe, and you might start getting some refunds. Ooh. Because as a W-2 worker, all the money they took off your paycheck, minus all the money you donated to the public school, they might be able to hire financial planners to teach these classes. But who they got teaching high school right now for $35,000, $45,000 a year? People who couldn't succeed in the careers that they wanted to make, and they became a teacher because they got all this knowledge, they got all these degrees, can't do shit with it, so they go and become a teacher. And some love teaching. They don't make enough money to survive outside of a upper lower class standard of living, and a lot of teachers, the best teachers, take money out of their own paycheck and buy supplies for the kids because the parents don't send the kids to school with supplies, because the parents believe that the school should supply the kids with the supplies. But the school is on a limited budget. And after Trump just destroyed the Department of Education, who is providing extra money to the school for the paper, the pens, the rulers, the erasers, the test scores, the textbooks, the desk that they're sitting in, the free lunch that they get for breakfast and lunch? All you're doing is buying a backpack and sending them to school, but the teacher is paying for everything you don't send your child to school with out of their pocket. Okay? Why? Because I mean, if they can invoice the shit, guess what that was? That was a donation. Write it off on their taxes. But they're still financially strained when a private school, which is not tax deductible, you have to pay them money so that your kid can maintain education at their facility. So why spend $1,000 to $1,500 per semester for a private school when you can spend $1,000 to $1,500 per semester for a public school and get a tax write-off on that? Why not invest in your children's education so that your children have a better opportunity to be successful? Because if there was enough money in the school for someone like me to be a teacher in a school getting $70,000 a year to teach everybody how not to be broke, who's paying that salary? That's almost $25 a student every day. See what I'm saying? Y'all got to pay for convenience. But yes, I agree. Financial planning, financial management should be taught in high school. It should be a college course. You should have intro level courses starting at 10, 11, and 12th grade. And then you should also have college elective courses that teaches advanced levels of that for the first 3 years of your undergrad, so that when you get out of college, you know how to be financially successful. But guess what? Here's a thing. Financial knowledge is supposed to be passed down from generation to generation. So why is it the teacher's responsibility and why is it the school's responsibility to teach financial literacy? Why is it mom and dad putting in the effort to learn how to be financially responsible and then teaching their kids from 5, 6, and 7 years old before they're old enough to go to school about financial management, so that they start learning financial management throughout their childhood, so that by the time they get to high school, they already know about it? I already gave you guys a show about this already that showed y'all that y'all could be teaching y'all kids from 8 years old to 18 years old how to be a financial boss and not be wasteful. So that by the time they go to college, they know how to manage their money. What it takes is for us to learn it from somewhere so that we have it to teach our kids, because we don't know it because our parents didn't teach it to us. They didn't know it because their parents didn't teach it to them. I learned it. I'm teaching it to y'all. So the only people that know about it right now are the people that spent the last 2 hours on this podcast. Like, shit, I didn't know that I could lose everything with my house, and I didn't know that I could do other things to save my house. Not too many people before today knew that they could go to their landlord and ask their landlord for a 2-year lease instead of a 1-year lease. Not a lot of people know that. They do not have a mandatory fixed 12-month only. They have short-term leasing for 6 months for those individuals that don't plan on staying there for a long time. They have 12-month standard leasing, but they also have 18-month and 24-month leasing for extended stay. If you know you're going to be here for a couple years, you're guaranteedly not going nowhere. You can ask them for an extended. And if all they're going to offer you is 18 months every 18 months, that means that you got a guaranteed year and a half, which means when everybody else gets their rent increase, you're not going to get it because you're contracted to the old way. A lot of moms and dads are dysfunctional and have no idea how to teach their kids. That's because they weren't taught right neither. The moms and dads that are dysfunctional grew up in dysfunctional households. That's all they know how to be. So when they come together dysfunctionally because they think that that's what love is, and that's not what love is, which is why I teach y'all Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that dysfunction should not be in your house. Your house should be boring as fuck. I'm gonna tell you this right now. A lot of people are gonna log off when I tell them this. Your house should be boring as fuck. Everybody should be predictable. Everything should be predictable. Yeah, you're gonna want to add spice in your life and do something spontaneous that's gonna cost an unpredictable quantity of capital. But stability is predictable. You come home from work when you come home from work, and outside of a traffic jam or a construction site, your wife knows when you're coming home from work. Your husband knows when you're coming home from work. You go to work when you go to work. Your wife knows when you're leaving for work. Your husband knows when you're leaving for work, so they can help you get ready to go to work so that you can get to work on time. Your kids always come back from school. You don't even got to be home. They get out of school at 2. By 2:45, they're inside of the house doing their homework. Predictable. You get off at 4, you start making dinner at 5, you have dinner on the table by 7, the kids eat dinner, they go to bed by 8:45. Predictable. It is boring. But you know what boring is for people who like toxic? Not fun. And they are going to move on to excitement. Oh, but if you have toxicity, y'all fighting in the house, cussing and yelling at one another. The kids is fighting each other, breaking windows, fighting kids in the street. You out there fighting a neighbor's kid, and then the neighbors gonna come and fight you for fighting their kid. You got a toxic lifestyle. You're gonna have toxicity in your environment. Your kids are gonna learn toxicity, and all they're gonna have is a toxic upbringing. So they're gonna find comfort in toxic. That's what they're familiar with. The sassy talk back, violent, throw stuff, hit you in the back of the head, throw a pot of grits on you, key up your car, set it on fire, kind of toxic. That's what you saw your adults doing in your household. So you're going to expect people like that to be in your life. But if you knew that setting bathtubs on fire is not a healthy way to be in a relationship, then you wouldn't date nobody who even joked about setting your bathtub on fire. But the funniest thing about this is that if women treat their boyfriends and their husbands the way they treat their fathers, they would have good men that would never go anywhere. And if men treat their girlfriends and their wives the way they cow tit for their mothers, they would never have a woman that would want to go anywhere outside of the gold diggers that want more from life than they can afford. The dynamic is the same. The old saying is, you know how they're going to treat you based on the way they treat their family. So If a man is treating his mama like gold, he would treat you like gold. If a girl's treating her daddy like gold, she would treat you like gold, or at least she should. But if they disrespecting their family and treating their family like garbage, you could only imagine how they're gonna treat you, because they value their family more than they value you. No matter what kind of relationship you're in, they value their family more than they value you. So if they're not respecting their family, they're not going to respect you. So that dysfunction, that is a loop in life, a reoccurring history that can be broken. Mentoring down and across requires you to learn, teach your friends, teach your family, teach your kids. Nobody might have taught you. I'm going to teach you. I learned it from somewhere else by doing my own research. And when I got all the information and culminated it for this podcast, you got like 2.5 years worth of information on this podcast. And I'm doing this every day of the week. Y'all should come back every day of the week and learn something new, and then do your own research after what I told you, so that you can verify all the information that I told you. And then instead of talking about the Epstein list and Beyonce and Nicki Minaj and all of this stuff, and Diddy trial and everything like that, talk about something that's going to benefit you. Talk about investing, talk about stock options, talk about portfolios, talk about doing something that's going to help your kids today. Talk about building the Donald Trump is giving everybody else's child a Trump account. Why don't you build your child a Trump account so that you can start building wealth for your kids, so that by the time your kids turn 18 years of age, that your kids got something to fall back on. Start planning to not struggle. Instead of talking about what they're doing on social media, instead of them Waffle House moments, instead of dwelling on the ICE chaos that's happening in Chicago and Memphis and New York, focus on how you can save up enough money and build up enough wealth to move away from that shit. Instead of out there protesting in the streets about the chaos, move. If the population relocated, the city would cut the bullshit out, because there won't be nobody living there paying for shit. There ain't nobody in the city to regulate. The city is a ghost town because the population didn't like the way it was being treated. Gentrification. At the end of the day, you are in control of what happens in your life to a degree, and the things you don't like, you are supposed to change that. But the toxicity and dysfunctionality, people learn and look and love and long for chaos, which is why all the people are in the streets. Because one house got broken into in the middle of the night. Now you got a few 100,000 people chasing down FBI agents all over the streets. It is only that way because they're running out there with their cell phone for clickbait to get chaos on camera. I'm going to tell you right now, those are the cities that I will never visit because they have chaos on the news. But that chaos has never come to my city. Am I going to go look for it? Like that black man that was out there protesting for Venezuela, and then they started throwing racial comments at him. Bro, you just stopped picking aspirin, picking cotton out of the aspirin bottle, and you're out there sitting there protesting for Venezuela. You should be trying to get off of your government funds and go and find yourself some extra money. You over here protesting for Venezuela. If you invest in the oil companies, you wouldn't have to worry about what's happening to Venezuela, because you'd be making money off of Venezuela. Is that I agree. You are correct as usual. I don't fail you guys. I bring y'all the logic after I bring y'all the facts. I never find a problem without finding a solution, but I have to make it make sense, because what we have is a society that is based off of fuck it, it is what it is. And that mentality allows for catastrophic failure. You don't like the way it is, but because it's always been that way, you're not going to put forth the effort to change that. But you don't like the way it is. How is it going to get better eventually if nobody puts in the effort to change it? If all I can do is spend 3 or 4 hours a day, every day of the week, telling y'all how we could be better, giving you actual ways to be better, where y'all can do y'all research and figure it out. What's that man Samuel passed away? He was telling women about how to be better, but are they better now? The man died, and women have not improved. telling men about how men can be better. I've been doing this for a few years now, but not every man that comes to this podcast is going to improve. Some people are going to click away. They don't want to hear this. They want to see some girl shaking her behind doing a new water dance or something like that. They're not trying to better themselves. And that's fine. I don't mind that, because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, this podcast will have people jumping on it like, yo, I used to watch you way back when. And my question to those people are going to be, what have you done with your life since the last time you seen my show? Because I am successful. The people that I influence should also be successful. I'm not trying to sell y'all on joining no summer camp or nothing like that, like those real estate gurus and those tax lien seminars or nothing like that. You're going to go to a Hilton or a Howard Johnson or a Embassy Suites and sit there for 4 hours, and they're going to never tell you what to do, but tell you there's a way to get to your goals. And you done spent your whole day there. Then they're going to want you to give them $500 and buy their membership so that you can go to a retreat, so that you can spend the whole weekend where out of 4 days, they tell you one thing that you want to hear and never get to the point of how you can make money. And then you're locked into a subscription where the website tells you everything that you were looking for, which turns out to be not what you thought it was. All that time, money, and effort you wasted, $3 a month, I tell you everything that you need. I'm not going to sell you on all of the stuff that other people are going to try to sell you on. I'm going to give it away, because knowledge was always supposed to be free. It was supposed to be passed down from generation to generation. Knowledge was supposed to come from us learning it, either by doing it or by seeing it done, and then teaching it to those who didn't know it. That's where common knowledge came from. It was common because everybody talked about it. So everybody should have known about it. And if you didn't know about it, you wasn't in the loop. And why are you not in the loop when everybody you know knows about it, but you don't know about it? You must have not have been listening. It's not common knowledge no more, because everybody's selling knowledge for profit. Because knowledge is probably one of the other renewable resources that is hard to come by. And as societies crumble, knowledge crumbles because nobody tells a story, because everyone's dead. But if we were to put more effort into ourselves financially, we would have more resources to put into our loved ones. Those of you that want to do for your friends and family members that y'all know are suffering, y'all would have more to give away to the people that count if you had more money coming in. But how, if you're giving your last dollar to your favorite family member, are you capable of looking after your second favorite family member when your last dollar is gone? And if your last dollar went to somebody that ain't your kids, how are you going to take care of your kids if your last dollar was given to one of your family members? Then I just showed y'all just yesterday how y'all could come together, live off of one income in a 2-income household, where women can get with a man, and it doesn't matter if it's her income paying all the bills and his income going into the stocks, or his income paying all the bills and her income going into the stocks. Y'all could be a millionaire inside of 20 years. Y'all could probably, depending on your income, be a millionaire inside of 10 years. And no woman wants a man that makes $50,000 a year, but I just showed you that a $52,000 a year man and a $40,000 a year woman can be $2 million in 20 years. I just showed y'all that $52,000 a year woman can be dating a $40,000 a year man, can be $2 million inside of 20 years. And y'all like, oh, I want a $100,000 man, but what is a $100,000 man gonna do for you besides beat your ass? Y'all need to start planning for realisticness, because 76 or 77%, because only 23% of Americans make more than $100,000 a year. Let's just start there. So the other 77% make less than $100,000 a year. That's men and women alike. Okay. And when you really think about it, so out of 380 something thousand Americans, you're looking at about 300,000 Americans that don't make 100,000 a year, right? And half of that's women. Okay. So out of 160 something thousand men, or 120 something thousand men that don't make, well, not 100, it's 120 million men that don't make 100,000 a year. You're looking at, out of that, more than half makes 50,000. And isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Those are the factual numbers. So you're looking at fellas that are making 50 to 60,000 on average, 70, 80,000 when they're on a good foot, and they're not that $100,000 dude. But if she was 40, 50, $60,000, a teacher, a nurse, an executive, whatever, and she got with that dude, maxed his salary, you're 120,000 between the two of y'all, and y'all can still live a $60,000 a year lifestyle. And at $120,000, you're putting $60,000 away. You're $1,000,000 in 10 years. Y'all don't need to go and look for the ultra rich. Y'all just need to find, if you're a nurse in the local hospital, find a shift manager in the McDonald's on the first floor, and y'all become millionaires. That's how you do that shit. If you work at the Starbucks, go get the guy at the McDonald's. If you work at Walmart, go get the person at Amazon. If you work at Circuit City, Best Buy, I'm thinking old school, Best Buy, go get the girl working at the pet store, and y'all become millionaires. It don't take that much. Two incomes can come together. And if y'all already living in the hood, y'all could just stay in the hood for a little bit longer and turn your money out. Is y'all the women chasing the top 1%? Yeah, and all of the men are chasing sex. So between the women chasing the top 1% of men and the men chasing all the loose women, and then in order for the women to get attention from men, they have to become loose women. Otherwise, they won't get attention. The men can't find a virtuous woman because the culture has decided that virtuous women don't matter until marriage. But the women cannot turn back time. So when they stop being virtuous women so that they can get the attention from all of the guys, all of the virtuous women are gone. Everybody's looking for the wrong thing. It ain't just the women. Everybody's looking for the wrong thing. But the fact is that after you finish making them damn mistakes at 35, 40 years old, as a woman that's 35 or 40 years old, you at your 55, 65, $75,000 a year income can still get a $30, $40,000 a year man, and y'all making $100,000 living on a $42 or $55,000 a year lifestyle, and y'all can still make $500,000 in 10 years, which is enough money to quit. But if you want to do it for 20 years, you got him at 40, you're 60, y'all stayed together, and now y'all can quit, and y'all are making 2 times more money than what y'all was making together, and y'all can travel the world and maintain your standard of living. And all women claim that they love to travel. Not all women can afford to travel. They want to travel on a man's dollar, but all women can build a relationship where they can travel with the man that they love if y'all cooperate with each other. What are these numbers? These numbers are facts, Barney. There we go. That's right. There we go. We're talking about the statistical averages of why broke stay broke and why the wealthy keep getting more wealthy. Because two rich people will come together on a business idea. They can be the worst enemies of one another. And if there's money to be made, they're going to make that money first. But broke folks will sabotage each other, fight in the street, destroy each other's stuff, destroy each other's reputation, destroy yourself to destroy the other. You kamikaze out there trying to destroy somebody else. And everybody stay broke. And society looking at the broke people shaking their head like, that's how they behave. And what do you think they're going to do to keep you out of their establishments? They're not going to tell you you can't come in here because of the color of your skin. They're going to set the price above your affordability. $250 a plate, $700 entry fee, $100 a month membership. You can't afford to be there. A certain outfit for members only that requires $5,000 a body outfit. It prevents poor people from being there because the rules are you must pay certain quantities of money to be in this establishment. They're not just going to stop you from coming in because of your race. They're going to stop you from coming in because you're fucking broke. Yeah. It doesn't just start with the dress code. It ends with the dress code. But you could expand your life. You could expand your worldviews. You could expand your connections. You could expand your network just by expanding your options. Just look for another way. All right. Now that you understand the compounding crisis, the trap of no equity, and the market forces at play. Make sure y'all like and subscribe to this channel so that y'all can see more of this, because we're here 7 nights a week. But more importantly, you have to realize that throughout the show today, I've given you the blueprint for a different path, one that values liquidity, flexibility, and disciplined investments. And the game has changed, but now that you know the new rules, the next move is going to be on you guys. Oh, money talk and no money walks. I appreciate it, but really what he was trying to say is money talk and bullshit walk. So if you ain't got a dollar in your hand, your conversation is going to be short. At the end of the day, you can only impact society in 2 ways. You either putting money into it or taking money out of it. Mama used to say back in the day, you don't hit them in the face, you hit them in the wallet. They ain't doing right by you, take it out their pocket. That's what civil courts are for. They messed up your property, you sue them for it. Ain't nobody street fighting these days. Well, the broke folks are. Rich folks don't. Rich folks, let's work a deal out. Let's work a deal out. I'll pay for your dry cleaning. Let's work out a deal. Let's make some money. I'll add you to a deal that you didn't already know about so that I could put money into your pocket because of what I just did. But the leverage that you get from that, if your worst enemy is your biggest financial investor, it is so much better than if your best friend is the brokest person in your squad. Your skin is flawless. I appreciate that, Sean. Thank you so much. The fact is, you are only going to be as successful as the 5 people you keep closest to you. And y'all hear this all over social media, but it's true. If everybody around you is broke, you're going to stay broke too. If everybody around you is not successful, you're going to stay not successful too. You have to expand your network, but the only way you can expand your network is if you put yourself in different places where you can come across different people. Hopefully you can get involved with their network so that your network expands with a better network. It's not about getting rid of your old friends. It's about making new friends, making new acquaintances, new financial partners, business ventures. I talk to y'all every Wednesday about a different country that you can go to and live, invest, start up a new life, get a second citizenship or a residency where you can start traveling to more countries, because the countries that you can't go to with a U.S. visa, you can leave the U.S. visa at the bottom of your bag and travel there with the Cambodia visa. You don't need to fly straight from Texas to where you're trying to go. You can fly from Seattle to Belize and then travel from Belize to Belarus and then travel from Belarus to Bangladesh and then from Bangladesh to Shanghai. And you don't need to use the same passport for each one. And you can have a house in each one of them countries. But it starts with you finding another way. So I want you guys to make sure that you remember this, because if tonight's show opened your eyes at all and you guys have a new way of thinking, I want you guys to make sure that you turn on that notification bell after you've liked and subscribed. Even if you're watching us from Twitter, if you're watching us from Twitch, we're going to start having TikTok coming through soon after that TikTok deal gets signed on the 22nd. You guys got to keep coming, because I release deep dives like this every single night. And I'm going to be giving you guys strategies just like this to help you guys thrive financially, make better decisions in your personal life, because your personal life's decisions negatively impact your money. And when your personal life decisions hurt your money, that money hurts your bottom line, which forces you to put pressure on your boss to make more money, or it forces you to put more pressure on your customer base in order to make more money to offset those bad decisions. And a lot of times when you can't put pressure on your business life, you take it out of your savings, you take it out of your investments to offset failure. So I help you guys make better decisions all over the place. That way we can bring this all together and you can change the things in your life that you can control and navigate around the things that you can't. Is it, why can't we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps? We don't even want to tie our shoes? Haven't you noticed the next generation of kids is doing that fucking noose knot with their shoelaces so that they don't have to tie their damn shoes? But when the police start chasing them, they run out of their $300 sneakers, left their sneakers in the ballpark, and they gone down the street barefoot, holding their pants up with one hand and falling with the other, because we don't want to do better. We want to look cool. And in order to cool, I just did a show about the blackness mentality. We want to look cool and we want to fit in. So we put forth the effort to fit in, ironically, with the failure mentality instead of trying to fit in with a financially successful mentality. Fitting in with a financial successful mentality requires you to tie your shoes, pull up your pants, tighten your belt, put on a suit, put on a dress, and not one that is revealing. Something that's below your knees, that's above your chest, that's not showing off all your assets, so that you're valued for your mindset, not your cleavage, so that you can be put into a position where you're getting money because of what you're capable of, not of what the man was imagining to do with you. Y'all should be able to put yourselves in a better position where you're not being judged by your tattoos, but you're judged by your talent, and y'all not doing that. That's the reason why we're not picking us up by our bootstraps. The reason why we're not doing the best that we can, because we choose not to. We want to be fuck ups in life so that people can clap us on, feminist movement. Let's be fuck ups all day long. But after a while, you're going to be 40, 50, 60 years old, sitting in the house by yourself thinking about all the stupid shit that you did. You don't even have any regrets on it because you knew you could have did better. But you're sitting there with this false sense of mentality that where you are right now, it will get better eventually without ever putting any effort towards change. And I'm just going to tell you that and the other scenario, we're going to put it in the Lord's hands. Y'all got the willpower, y'all got the skill set, y'all got the capabilities to do better. If y'all don't put forth the time and the effort to do better, you will never get better. You will always be like this. You will always be on that dead end job that sucks. You will always be working with people that's lazy. They're making more money than you and you're doing all the work. You're always going to be showing up on your days off. You're always going to be hanging out on your job when you don't get called in because you don't know what to do with yourself because it's the first time you didn't have to be to work on your day off. You don't have a life because you don't have enough money to have a life. And the only reason why the standard of living you have is so nice is because you work all the goddamn time. So you ain't never at your damn house to enjoy your house. Everybody that's in your house is enjoying your house. Your neighbors is enjoying your house. You're enjoying your fucking job because that's where you live. You live at your job 80 plus hours at a time. Oh yeah, you might have a $500,000 house, but if you spend 6.5 days out of your week at your damn job, you're not enjoying your damn house. It don't matter if you got an expensive ass car. If you spend more time standing up behind a cash register and your car sitting in the parking lot, the people in the parking lot is enjoying your fucking car. You're not enjoying your car. So you have to find a way to make money for you legally so that your money is making money so that you can enjoy your house at your house. You can enjoy your car in your car. You can enjoy your family with your family, not just talking about them and showing pictures to people because that's the one time you was with them. Most of us grew up without parents in our households because they was working their whole life until they died. We should not be another generation of adults that work until we die. We should be able to work until we've reached that retirement age. And when we stop working at 60 years old, 65 years old, the next 25 or 30 years is nothing but fun. No responsibility, all bills automated, all expenses paid. We can travel where we want to travel. We're never going to run out. We're not going to overdo it. We have the lifestyle that we need now. And if you're 25, 30 years old and you know that your plan is to live to 95, you need to be trying to put enough money aside that when you stop working at 50, that you got another 50 years worth of money left. If you start doing your 20-year plan right now in your 30s and 40s where you're going to stop at 50 or 60 years old, you want to have another 25 years of money left. And I just put up on Tuesday and I put up on Thursday this week on shows on how you could make money for yourself and in your relationship where you would be able to in 10 years, see massive returns, and in 20 years, see complete retirement. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. And it doesn't matter if you buy, it doesn't matter if you rent. What matters is that you don't waste your money on bullshit and focus on tomorrow, make your later greater, because the day is already gone. Now, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to tonight's show. I'm going to start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting down upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.